Hello, my name is Matthew Pfeiffer with MattPfeifferCoaching.com. Welcome to my YouTube channel. On this channel, I create videos and content about toxic, narcissistically abusive relationships. If you have a question that you would like for me to answer on this channel, make sure you send it to justaskmatt at MattPfeifferCoaching.com. Again, that is justaskmatt at MattPfeifferCoaching.com. Just make sure you keep that email 2 to 3 paragraphs max, and you're also very direct and to the point of what your question actually is. If it's too long, if it's too lengthy, or if I don't understand what you're asking, unfortunately, I will not be able to get to it. Also, make sure you hit the bell notification and you hit the subscribe notification so you are notified each and every time I upload a new video. I upload new videos on this channel 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. With all that being said, let's get into today's email. This email comes from a person that is co-parenting with a narcissist and is struggling with it because their daughter is refusing to participate. And that can be very intense, and that can be a major struggle because as a parent, you have an obligation to make sure that certain things are happening and that you create the atmosphere for your child to continue to co-parent and continue to have a relationship with the parent because of the court decrees. And so let's get into this email. So this email reads, "Hi Matt, I co-parent with my ex. Our daughter is 5. In our agreement, we can FaceTime with her each night. My daughter sometimes does not want to do this with her dad. Other people have witnessed this as well. When she doesn't want to FaceTime, her dad will say things like, 'You're hurting my feelings,' totally ignoring hers." And this is very, very common because with narcissists, no one else's feelings matter. So let's continue with this email. And continue to badger her with questions and not allow the call to end. She becomes frustrated, sometimes will throw the phone at me to end it. Of course, my ex blames this on me, makes covert threats. His go-tos are guilt tripping, blaming, and retaliation of sorts by using our child to do so. How do you suggest I best handle this while continuing to honor my child's feelings? So this can be very, very difficult when the child, especially at a young age, is being used as a pawn like this. And they are likely feeling a lot of pressure from the parent, from the other parent to comply with something that they don't want to. And this can be very, very difficult. But also, we can't deny, right, the fact that this is an issue because there's a lot of pressure for the mother in this situation to comply because of the court agreement. So you do have a responsibility as a parent to make sure, and every state is different, so I don't know what state you're in. And again, I'm assuming that this is a court order and not just some willy-nilly thing that you guys have put into place. So what happens in situations like this, and the last thing I'll say about this is make sure that you check this with your lawyer because, again, every single state is different. But when you have a situation, in most situations like this, and the daughter, especially a young daughter, 5 years old, does not want to participate, we as parents have to fulfill that obligation regardless. Now, for a lot of parents, they're thinking, well, the child doesn't want to. Well, there's a lot of things that 5-year-olds don't want to in this, and I'm saying this in the way that the court system would see this, right? For those of you who don't know, I used to be a liaison between CPS and family court and coordinate a lot of things that were similar to this. So your child, right, they're 5 years old, right? We have to be the adult in the room. Now, with all that being said, the pressure that the child is under to talk to the parent and talk to the other parent, and when they're ready to end it, right, we can now begin to let our child know, right, that they're ready to end it. Now, we also need to document everything that's actually happening, right? We can't, because if this person, right, if your ex decides to take this to court, right, you need to show that not only are you allowing for the calls to happen, that you're complying with the calls, but your daughter is the one that's making a decision to end the calls, that maybe these calls are too lengthy. Document the amount of time, right? Because a 5-year-old's attention span isn't that of a child who is 12 or 15 years old. And even at that, it's a stretch to get children to want to be on the phone for long, extended periods of time. So often we make everything available, right, for the daughter to talk. But once the daughter wants to end the call, if she throws the phone, if she hangs the phone up, you can even teach her how to hang the phone up, right? Because if she's choosing not to participate, that's a whole nother ballgame, right? Especially if this person is trying to guilt and trying to shame and creating pressure. But again, it's important that you document all of this. And I'm going to tell you the reasons why here in a second. But for now, let's talk about your daughter's feelings. So she's going to feel a lot of pressure. And it's important that for those of you who have children who are feeling pressure on one end, right, you have to understand that this is the reason why why you hear people advocating for a divorce when there's children instead of trying to keep the relationship together for the children. That type of pressure that the child is under, they don't experience any type of freedom whenever you stay with the narcissist, right? This is just their life, that they have to comply with all the pressure. Now they don't necessarily have to comply with it. Now they are able to actually be free, right? To express themselves, to talk and to articulate about how they actually feel. So it's important on the back end that you also create the atmosphere that your daughter is able to express herself. Now, short term, this is aggravating. Long term, the pressure and the guilt tripping and what's happening over the course of time, as long as you create a good, healthy atmosphere where she can express herself and your daughter can speak up for herself and she learns to have a voice, this type of behavior is going to end up backfiring on them long term, on the narcissist. You have to understand that the reason why narcissists do this is 4 levels of control. They're trying to control the daughter, they're trying to control you, and the same in what you're doing through this process. And a lot of times parents don't want their children to feel bad or to have negative feelings because they think that it's a bad reflection on them as a parent. No. We have a responsibility to our children to teach them how to process all of their emotions, not just the happy ones, not just the ones that feel good. And quite often parents want their child to be happy all the time because it's the parent's validation at that point. No. We have a responsibility to teach our children how to process all of them, right? So when your daughter gets frustrated, guess what? We need to teach her how to process frustration, how to process when she's down, when she's angry, right? So you teach her and you're there for her. You need to be a support for her when she's doing something that she doesn't really care for, right? Because guess what? At some point in time in adulthood, she's going to have to experience that, and she's going to need to be able to do that without throwing the tantrums. A really good book that I would highly recommend, and if you go to the links in my bio, you can go to a bunch of recommended books, but there's 2 books. Both of them are by Dr. Shafali. One of them is The Conscious Parent, and the other one is The Awakened Family. I think both of those would be very helpful in teaching you how to process emotions with your daughter, right? And how to set boundaries and how to create that type of atmosphere that I mentioned. So part 2 to this, what do we do about the narcissist? He can go fuck himself, right? In terms of his anger, in terms of whatever, right? And the guilt tripping, you don't have to talk to him at that point, right? And so what we do now, we do need to be appropriate in terms of making sure that you protect yourself in terms of court, but in terms of the guilt tripping of you and all the angry text messages, now we have to understand that we have no control over him, right? We have no control over the text messages that he sends or anything like that. However, right, when he does send those messages, and let's say those threatening messages that you mentioned, right? You can either not respond at all, right? If he's making accusations, you can say things simple as for those of you who follow Judge Anthony, you guys know his favorite line. You know that's not true, right? You know that's not true, but you don't have to. One of the things that I'm hearing in this type of situation is the likelihood is that you're struggling also with your own personal emotional regulations. And here's the reason why I can tell that. It's very common for people who struggle with codependency and people pleasing to feel uncomfortable with other people's big emotions because you feel responsible for them. You want to keep your daughter happy and you also want to avoid conflict with your ex. Neither one of those things are going to happen. So we need to begin to process our own emotions, right? You're probably getting very triggered whenever your ex starts to call and whenever he starts to text, whenever he starts to threaten. Right? Put the phone down. You don't have to respond right away. Breathe, go for a walk, right? Deal with your emotional triggers. Then if it deserves a response, give an appropriate response. But quite often, especially if they're making threats, it doesn't deserve a response. Now, again, all of that, make sure you check and talk with your lawyer. because I don't know what state you're in. I don't know how things are written up in your decree, right? And we always want to make sure that we're protecting ourselves in court and we're complying with court and taking care of our family as well. So thank you very much for writing in. For those of you who want to write in and have a question for me, make sure you send it to justaskmatt@mattpfeiffercoaching.com. Again, that is justaskmatt@mattpfeiffercoaching.com. Make sure that you keep that email 2 to 3 paragraphs max and be very direct about what your question actually is. The fastest way to work with me, though, is to book a paid one-on-one coaching session. All the information for that is down in the links below. With all that being said, thank you very much, and I'll see you guys in the next video.